Today we're going to go over solving some percent problems. First, the word percent actually means per 100. So the number 40% can be thought of as a fraction. 40% means 40 out of 100. A percent is always a fraction over 100. We could reduce this fraction. If we divide the top and bottom by 10, I get 4/10. And then I could divide top and bottom by 2, and I've got 2/5. So 40% and 2/5 are the exact same thing. In fact, if I want to take any percentage and change it into a fraction, I take that number, so in example B, 22.5, and I write it over 100. Now, having a decimal within a fraction is kind of ugly, so I'm going to clear that decimal by multiplying the top and bottom by 10. Multiplying by 10 basically just takes the decimal and moves it one place over to the right. So now I have 225 over 1,000, and there's a common factor, I'd say probably a common factor of 25. 225 divided by 25 is 9, and 1,000 divided by 25 is 40. So 22.5% is the same as 9/40. Now to change a percent into a decimal, again, that percent still means per 100 or divide by 100. If you divide by 100 and you're working with decimals, that actually takes the decimal and moves it 2 places to the left. So this 35%, if I move the decimal 2 places to the left, I get 0.35. The same concept would work with the 4.2%. I take the decimal, I move it 2 places to the left, and I get 0.042. So to write a percent as a decimal, we just move that decimal 2 places to the left. Now there's 2 different ways that you can solve percent problems. You can solve a percent problem using an equation or using a proportion. And I'll go over both of these methods today, and you can just see which method you like best. If you want to use the equation method, the part always equals the percent times the total. So if you take a percent and you multiply it by a total value, that gives you the portion or the fraction or the part that you're interested in. Now, there's a couple of key words that come up in problems that can help you decipher what is the part and what is the total. The total is always going to be after the word of. And in fact, when you see that word of, it typically means multiply. And that's what it means in percent problems. Whereas the word is your equal sign. So in problem 4a, we can actually translate this sentence directly into an equation if we use those facts. So it says 40% of 65 is what number? The 65 is the total, 40% is the percent, and we're trying to find the part of that total. So using my equation, the part is the unknown, I might call that x. That's going to equal my percent times my total. Now when you put percentages into math equations, you have to change them to fractions or decimals. I'm going to change 40% into a decimal. So I'm going to move that decimal 2 places to the left. So 40% is 0.4, of means times 65. So I have to take 0.4 times 65. When I multiply, I get 26. So 26 is 40% of 65. Example B says 4.5% of what number is 45? So I'm going to translate this directly into an equation. So first of all, 4.5% is the same as 4.5%. If I move that decimal 2 places to the left, I get 0.045. So this problem says 4.5%, 0.045 of, that means multiply, what number is my unknown? So we're going to take the 4.5%, multiply that by x, and that equals 45. Or another way of thinking about this is we don't know what comes after the of. we don't actually know the total in this problem. We just know the part. So the percent times the unknown total has to equal that part. To solve, this time I'm going to divide both sides by 0.045. And when I do the division, I get 1,000. So 4.5% of 1,000 is 45. Finally, in example C, we don't know the percent. It says what percent of 80 is 88. Now the number after the of is always the total. The number after the is always the part. Or if I translate this directly into an equation, what percent, that's my unknown, my x, of is times 80 is the equal sign 88. Or you could write this as 80 times x equals 88. So this time 80 was the total and 88 is actually the part. So to solve, I'm going to divide both sides by 80 and I get 1.1. Now that's actually not my final answer. I want to know what this is as a percentage, and when I do the math, I actually get a decimal. To change a percent into a decimal, we have to move the decimal 2 places to the left. So to do the opposite, we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right. So 1.1 is the same as 110%. Now in this case, I actually got a number that was bigger than 100% because my part was 88 and my total was 80. The part is actually bigger than the total, so it's more than 100% of the total. Now percent problems can also be solved using proportions, the idea that the percent over 100 has to equal the part over the total. So what number is 18% of 105? The total is always after the of. So 18 is my percent, so my proportion is going to be 18 over 100. I don't know the part, that's my x, and the total is the 105. Now anytime you have a proportion, two fractions that are equal, you can take the cross products and set them equal to each other. In other words, we could take 100 times x, and that has to equal 18 times 105. So we're multiplying at an angle, and this is only true with proportions. When you have two fractions that are equal to each other, the cross products are always equal. Let's see, 18 times 105 is 1890. And so then to finish, I would divide both sides by 100, and I get 18.9. In example B, let's try to use a proportion again. So 8%, we know the percent, always goes over 100. Of what number? So this time we don't know the total. The x actually goes on the bottom. 8% of what number is 1.2? So the part now is the 1.2. We can solve this problem the same way we did the last one. The cross products have to be equal. That means if I take 8 times x, that has to equal 1.2 times 100. Or 8x equals 120. To finish this problem, I'm going to divide both sides by 8, and I'm left with 15. So 8% of 15 is 1.2. Now, just to review, you could have also set this problem up as an equation. If you want to use an equation, I would write the 8% as a decimal, 0.08. We don't know the total, so times x equals 1.2. Then to solve, we would divide both sides by 0.08. And you should get the exact same answer when you do the division. I think if you have a calculator, the equation method is actually a little bit easier. If you don't have a calculator, I find the proportion method easier. But feel free to use either method. We are going to expand on percentages in the future, And I will probably be using the equation method a little bit more as we progress in this class.